I also need to roll call. Good, okay. In attendance today, I'm the chair, Jennifer Perez. We have Mr. Sokolovic, Mr. Traber, Mr. Benahan, Ms. Casimir is joining virtually, Mr. Woodson is joining virtually. Is that all? I believe that's all. And so we'll have public comment right now. Jess Resto. A minute.
I'm Jess Resto, 110 Jennings Avenue. I'd like to congratulate each of you on stepping up into your new roles. I truly hope this marks a new beginning of positive and brighter chapter for all of us. As someone involved in our community, I regularly hear from staff, students, and parents. The feedback I receive often reflects a sense of frustration and distrust, especially when it comes to feeling that their voices and needs have been overlooked. The sentiment unfortunately stems from the past experiences and community forums where many felt disrespected by the dismissive and disengaging approach of previous leadership. Despite these challenges, I remain hopeful for change, for growth, and for a renewed commitment to transparency and collaboration. I recognize that many of the faces in leadership positions today are familiar, and while that may bring up concerns from past disappointments, I see this as an opportunity for renewal, a chance for redemption and progress. One issue I like to highlight is the urgent need to restructure our committees. As Ms. Sweeney wisely pointed out during the last board meeting, we must work together to harness our collective strengths in a productive and focused way. We faced budget challenges before, but seeing continued unchecked spending while being assured there was nothing to worry about raises serious concerns. As the CFO mentioned, if the house was clean, I wouldn't have been called to sweep it up. It's clear that there's been a lack of financial oversight, and this needs to be addressed for the sake of accountability and fiscal responsibility. The recent vote of no confidence from our teachers is a powerful message, not just to the superintendent, but also to the board. We all want to see how those responsible for these challenges will make things right. Accountability must be a priority. Behind closed doors, discussions only serve to increase suspicion and distrust, making it hard to rebuild the confidence of the community. I urge this board to embrace transparency, accountability, and open communication. We need to rebuild trust, and that can only happen when the needs and the voices of our students, staff, and parents are truly heard and prioritized. Public meetings should be just that, public and open to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Resto. The next item on our agenda is the discussion of possible action, including but not limited to authorizing the board chairperson to execute an agreement on behalf of the Board of Education concerning proposed separation agreement between Superintendent Dr. Carmela Levy-David and the Bridgeport Board of Education. This item does qualify for executive session as it discusses personnel. So would anybody like to make a motion? Mr. Traber is making a motion to go into executive session.
I'll second.
Mr. Sokolovic is seconding that. Okay, if we go into executive session, our board attorneys, Mr. Floyd Dugas and Mr. Bertillo, and our city attorney, Mark Anastasia, would join us along with the board.
I'd like to be acknowledged that I'm in attendance.
I was going there, so just one moment. And just for that portion, in attendance, we have Willie Medina and Christine Baptiste Perez, who joined virtually. So we can go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed to executive session? Any abstentions? Okay. Board members who are joining virtually, you have a link and a separate link, and you can join that link now. We'll be heading to executive session now. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just in case I have not received that yet, so if you can have technical take a look at that, please.
Will do.
Thank you.
right. All right, we're going to come back to order. The time is 7:14. Is there any motion? Mr. Traber?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve and authorize the board chairperson to execute on behalf of the board the agreement discussed in executive session concerning the separation of Superintendent Dr.
Can we? Okay.
The agreement, let me start that over. I make a motion to approve and authorize the board chairperson to execute on behalf of the board the agreement discussed in executive session concerning the separation of Superintendent Dr. Carmela Levy-David.
I second that.
The motion was moved by Mr. Traber and seconded by Mr. Benahan. Do we have any debate? No debate on that, right? We're just gonna go into vote. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Okay, there's gonna be a roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tahiba Bain,
Yes, approve.
Ms. Christine Baptiste Perez, I'll be back for her. Ms. Akisha Casimir, I'll be back for her. Mr. Willie Medina,
Yes.
Ms. Jennifer Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Robert Traber,
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Woodson,
No.
going back to Ms. Christine Perez, Ms. Christine Baptiste Perez. Okay.
Can you say your name again?
Ms. Christine Baptiste Perez,
Sorry, I lost connection. We're taking the vote?
Yes.
Yeah, I approve it.
sorry?
She said yes.
Yes, okay. Myself, Mr. Benahan, yes. And Mr. Joseph Sokolow.
No with a brief explanation. I think at this point in time, while I do wish the superintendent well and that it's best that we separate service at this point in time, I do not agree with the package being offered. At this time, I would not agree with any package being offered to any employee being severed. And I wish Dr. Levy-David well in our future endeavors and hope us for success in a future life. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have 6 yes and 2 no.
Okay, the motion passes. All set. All right, the next item on the agenda is the presentation of the Bridgeport Public Schools fiscal year 24 and 25 potential budget gap closing measures. And Dr. Avery will be presenting on that.
Good evening, everyone. Can I get the presentation posted? Oh. Danielle. Danielle's going to hand out copies of the presentation to the board members that are present. Nestor is going to email the presentation to the board members that are online. This item was supposed to be an executive session, but I don't think we have the votes to do that. So I want to make sure that all board members have a copy of it present. For the community, you'll have an opportunity to have a view of my presentation as I go through the presentation. And then it will also be, I think we can put it on our website as well once we go through the presentation. So good evening. Again, my name is Dr. Royce Avery, the Acting School Superintendent for Bridgeport Public Schools. I do want to extend a huge thank you to my executive, leadership team. We've been working behind the scenes trying to kind of get budget proposals ready for the board, for several weeks now. It's been, a very, tedious process, but I think we're at a point where we feel comfortable providing some things that we are ready and willing to be able to execute. And so we would like for you to kind of understand the presentation. I'm going to have several slides that I will review, and then Nestor has a couple of slides at the end that's going to give you a little bit deeper context to the budgetary process that we have been through, so that we can have some clarity to some of the items that I have. So Nestor, you may go ahead and send that email out. That'll be great. Board members online, you should be receiving that document shortly. It's the same document that's going to be presented online as well. Again, it's not working. You may have to help me here. The slide's not advancing. Perfect. All right. Just a kind of a quick introduction. We've been through the first two phases of this process. Immediate actions, things that we can do right now to try to, look at how we can trim the budget and do some things. We also have done a deep dive into the personnel and structural review. Phases 3 and 4, I've decided I think the board has to have a little bit more vested interest in really going through programs that the districts are using, that's electronic programs and direct programs, and also looking at vendors, contracts that we have across the district, and really making sure that those things that we started back in 2020 when we had ESSER dollars, to make sure that we could, still need those products, or we don't have duplications of programs that we are currently using. And I know in a tentative view of that, there's some programs that I know that we may be able to kind of combine, do away with, and I want the board to be able to help go through that process. The last phase there, phase 4, is just really looking at strategic initiatives, things that as a district, if we collaborate with the community, there's things that we may be able to consider that would be cost-saving measures for this district. They may be very hard decisions to make, but I think as a collaborative effort, we should be able to have some real good opportunities to save money, streamline things, get the community involved in what we're doing. And so I'm also going to move those things back to committee. And I think the board would be very helpful in figuring out what that's going to look like. So I'm very excited to kind of present my presentation. So the first thing that we've done in this first phase, it was really looking at, the internal perspectives of Bridgeport Public Schools. The team and I looked at, things that we could do differently in order to be able to, not add any additional dollars to the budget. Again, looking at, non-essential purchases that we were making across the district, some of the recruiting efforts that we were doing, really just trying to make sure that we slow down things and really be strategic as to the things that we take on. In addition to that, we provided an internal freeze for certain positions within the district. We stayed away from special education and English language learning positions across the district because those are vital positions that we are struggling to fill across the district. And I think there's a lot of districts across Connecticut is dealing with those same kinds of concerns with the special ed teachers and the English language learning teachers. So we tried to avoid that. And then back on November the 8th, our Chief Financial Officer sent email communications across the district in order to make sure that we verified and clarified exactly what that means. And so this is a copy of the email that went out to staff, really trying to make sure everybody understand of things that we took on pre-COVID and the things that we're dealing with post-COVID, making sure that we try to understand all the things we purchased back then and where we are now, and are we still using those purchases, are still having those staff on staff, and can we continue to afford continuing those things? So we've done a lot of those internal look-ats in order to make sure that we could really, give the board a better idea of how we can save a little bit of money. The second phase, and this has been a very intense, very strategic, very in-depth process. So when on the first thing here, it talks about reviewing hiring since 2020, and that's right before COVID. When the district had several $1 million to work with to try to make sure that we could do some additional work for kids and staff throughout the district. But we really took a look at positions that were added August 2023, really trying to understand what was added within the last year and a half in the district. Then we went through the restructure of central office staff, looking at some of the things that has happened with central office staff over the last couple of years. And as in the next couple of slides, you'll see a current organizational chart of where we stand right now at central office and the proposed that I'm going to be proposing as we transition into a whole new structure in central office. I think one of the other things that I want to really emphasize to the board and to the community is that there's been a lot of conversation, in the community that's gotten back to me, that has gotten to the board about, salaries of central office staff. And one of the things that I think it was, prudent of my team, we talked about if we're going to do any type of restructuring, anything that we need to do, we need to start at the top. And so one of the things and one of the suggestions that the team has made is that the central office staff, my cabinet, will take a 2-week furlough, unpaid furlough, in order to start this process off. And making sure that everyone in this community understands that we're in it with them. As we start, looking at, budget, cuts and all those things, reshuffling and allocating funds across this district, we felt we needed to be the ones to start this process off. And so that's where they came up, and we suggested that we would do a two-week unpaid furlough for all cabinet members. The next impact that's really is going to be a driving force for how we do this restructuring across our district is the impact of the labor contracts. The teacher unions and the administrative unions have very unique, specific contracts on how you, if you're going to do a reduction in force, how you have to do that. So there's bumping rights that teachers may have, there's bumping rights that administrators may have, and they're very integral. So as you see some of the positions that I'm going to be putting up for considerations, we will probably not see the full, amount of salary savings this first year. Because in those union contracts, sometimes it's like one year you get a certain amount, second year you get a certain amount, and the third year you get a certain amount. So we have to follow those contracts. And so that's a very integral part that the team, human resource offices will have to kind of, guide this work. The other part of that is really analyzing the financial ramifications. And what that means is that due to the fact that we're going to reduce staff, the work still has to get done. And so as you see in my proposal, there's about 95 positions that we are looking to consider, eliminating. And when you do that, the work still has to get done. The accountability of this district and accountability of our staff to make sure kids, are learning, the academic growth of kids, that's kind of what the analyzation of the ramification of what we do. We just can't randomly do it. There's all kinds of things you have to consider as you, engage in this type of exercise when it comes to trying to reduce to gain dollars to help, fund the budget. So I would like to move into the current structure of how we're doing business. And due to the fact that we've shuffled some things, this is how it looks currently. You have the acting superintendent in the middle. You have the deputy superintendent on one side, which is vacant. It's the position that I came out of. And then you have the chief of staff. Down below, you have the assistant superintendent for school leadership, and that person currently holds an 093 to be able to supervise the individuals below them. And so you have under that direction of that assistant superintendent, you have a chief academic officer, you have the chief of special education, and within those, the chief academic officer has 8 academic directors that's currently under that position's direction. Also, that position has an executive director for school leadership, and then you have 2 executive directors for school leadership. And the 2 executive directors for leadership and the one executive director for school turnaround supervises principals. So it goes principals, the executive directors, then it goes back up to the chief academic officer, and then it goes from the directors back up to the chief academic officer as well. So the chief academic officer kind of, really spearheads the academic growth of the district. The academic directors are your math, science, ELA. I think there is fine arts, early childhood. So those individuals, and then we have 2 math directors, 2 science directors, and 2 ELA directors. That makes up those 8 school academic directors. In addition to special ed and academics, the assistant superintendent governs the communications of the district as well. On the other side, you have the chief human resource officer, the chief operating officer, the chief financial officer, and the director of data management. Those individuals report directly up to the superintendent. So when you look at that in the whole, that's the upper administrative staff of the district. That's how it's being run today, as we see it. The proposed, and again, if it's to take another step backwards, the salaries that are over $100,000, you have 2 top-level administrators, the deputy superintendent and the chief of staff. Then you have the executive level, you have the 2 executive directors of school leadership, and then you have the executive director for special education. Then you have the 3 academic directors that will be reduced as well, with the communications director, the human resource project assistant, or the specialist level, and then the community facilitator. These are the positions that you will not see in the new organizational chart. Now you take a look at the proposed organizational chart. You have the acting superintendent. You see the 2 green boxes. You have the existing assistant superintendent for school leadership, and then you have the reclassification of the chief academic officer to an assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. And so when you look at that, you have the assistant superintendent for school leadership will be in charge of special education, also communications, and then I'm proposing to split the elementary pre-K-8 schools, with some will go to the assistant superintendent for school leadership, and some will go to the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction. And then when you look at the curriculum instruction side, we reduced the academic directors to 5 directors, eliminating 1 from math, 1 math director, 1 science director, and 1 ELA director, leaving 5 directors, so that all content areas will be supported as we move forward. And then the school turnaround, the assistant superintendent will be in charge of that. So when you look straight down the middle, it's the same individuals, the chief human resource officer, the chief operating officer, the chief financial officer, and the director of data management. I've changed that position to the chief information officer, which all the data systems in the district, in addition to technology, will be housed in the chief information officer's position. In addition to that, all of the high schools would report directly to the superintendent. And so I had to kind of, based on eliminating some of those positions, but setting the district up in order to have 2 assistant superintendents with, that will be able to take care of both sides of the house, special education side of the house, also in the academic side of the house. So that's how the new format will look, and working from there. And now I want to kind of go deeper. And Nestor's, in his presentation, he's going to kind of give you a deeper dive into these numbers, so that you understand how where we're going with these. So in my proposal, the district will save almost $4 million with the cuts that we're going to be doing at central office. There's a total of $7 million plus dollars that will be saved with the first round of proposed reductions that I'm putting out there. But I wanted to make sure that you understand. But again, Nestor's going to go through a little bit deeper dive into the numbers and the pre-ESSER numbers and the current numbers and what we did with the allocations and how we went through the process of eliminating certain positions. And we'll go deeper into that when he makes his presentation. The second tier of staffing areas that we looked at reducing is on the operations side. Again, with the operations savings that we're looking at, it's about right at $1 million that we're looking at. On the operations side, we tried to stay away from real cuts in the area. The maintainers cuts are positions that are not necessarily filled yet. So we were able to kind of put that savings over to the staff reduction side because those positions are not even filled at the moment. And so wanted to make sure we do that. And then the third proposal is looking deeper into the academic and support staff. And when you look at the numbers there's not a whole lot of of recommended, areas of reduction. You see 5 counselors and 5 social workers, and we went back and forth in that area because we just received a substantial grant award to really support that side of it, and so we feel that we could possibly be able to massage those numbers, and make that work. So when this small bit of the academic piece, a lot of these positions were central office positions as well. And so we felt that we were able to kind of save almost $2 million in this area as well. And then you look at the overall, when you see, those different tiers of reductions, the district has an ability, to save almost $10 million with my proposal. And remember, some of the savings we will not see in the first year, not even in the second year. And so, and when that third year process goes with the union contracts, we will be able to recoup the full amount of that savings. And so, again, it's just, an area that we feel that we could, it's a start. And I think that's I think that's one of the driving forces for the board to me, as we talked about, what are we going to do, is to be able to have a start. And so, it's a small start. Towards trying to accomplish almost a $38, $39 million, downfall for the district. But we have to start somewhere. And we felt we needed to start at the top. And so this proposal really, supports that. But I know we're going to have deeper conversations about, other areas and other opportunities to be able to bring this to a better savings across the board overall. Again, we talked about, removing phase 3 and 4. I think they need to go back to committee and really start helping us look at what we're doing. Looking at, software programs in the district, looking at the vendors that we're engaged with in the district, cell phone plans that we provide for staff in the district. There's a whole lot of different things that I think the board will have a good conversation with our team to be able to kind of look at those. The other part of that is really collaborating with the unions. I've had several conversations over the last 2 weeks with unions about, what else could you guys do to help us, have some ideas coming together. So they're also getting back with their members and figuring out, how do we do that? How do we come to the table with suggestions and not just say, you can't do this because it's happening to our members? And so that's been a very rewarding and very fruitful to know that they're willing to come to the table with suggestions as well. So it's been a good partnership for us. And again, I think the other part of that, the third bullet there talks about additional fundings. I think it's quite time for the state of Connecticut, the city of Bridgeport, and all the other federal programs and things to be able to look at sources that we are able to tap into to provide additional resources for this district and for our kids. The other piece is that we have grant writing opportunities in this district. We have the data to be able to reflect the need that I think we could do a better job of writing grants and be able to pulling more of those dollars back in to this district. And one of the things I talked to Nestor about is we need to set a goal. And maybe it's a $5 to $10 million goal every year that we can pull in by writing grants to support the work that we're going to be doing in this district. And is it capable? Absolutely it is. But if you don't write them, you can't even be able to be awarded anything. So those are strong conversations that I think the board and the committees will be able to support that work and everybody get together and raise up the sleeves and let's get to work, because this is the opportunity for that to happen. And then when you look at phase 4, and I think this is where I'm going to call on the community to really kind of help us understand, and we can't do this alone. We need everybody in this community. We need the board to kind of rally the teamwork together to make this happen. And it's talking about how do we save money operationally? How do we deal with deficiency in our facilities? All these things are going to be critical conversations that have to be had, and we're hoping that this community will be able to step up and help us with that. I think the community needs to be able to voice their likes and dislikes about what's happening in our schools, and even provide opportunities and options for us to do things across this district. And so those are key pieces of how my team is and what my team is ready to do to take action. We're very excited about it. We know it's hard work, and it's not. We're not here to blame anyone. We're here to provide solutions, and we're here to say we're going to stand with this board, we're going to stand with this district, and we're going to stand with this community to do whatever we have to do to fight for kids and fight for good things for kids. And so we're very excited. Again, like I said on the slide here, the top priority is to reduce any impact on that's felt to students, families, faculty. I think that's important. And there may be a time in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, that we may have to, go down to the campus level to consider budgetary options. But when that comes, I would like to make sure that we take the necessary steps and communicate that step to everybody in the community to be able to do it. But right now, we're talking high level. We're talking things we can do right now. And I want to make sure that we're able to stand for it. But Nestor is going to he has 2 slides that he wants to kind of do a deeper dive. And I'll let him come to the podium to provide you with some additional information.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Like Dr. Avery had indicated, the spreadsheet pretty much self-explains itself. When you look at where it says FY, FTE, those are the total head count of employees for current year. Where it says FY 20, FTE, those are the employee head count in those categories by comparing each job to one another. So from 2020 pre-ESSER, they had a total of 70 employees in those categories. With ESSER money, those positions were increased to 124. So, which is an increase of 54 positions, well funded with ESSER money. The ESSER money has ended, so we have to come to the table. We're not saying, because we cannot sustain those positions. So what we've done, we're proposing to eliminate 50 of those 54 positions that were added. So 4 are still there. But again, when we take it one day at a time or stage by stage, not go too deep, see how much we can sustain ourselves, then time will come, possibly we're going to have to go back to pre-ESSER number. But for now, it's not really, it's elimination. Let me be clear. Not every of those positions is filled. They are located, when you say allocation in budget, it means they're budgeted. Every one of them is not filled, but for me to justify not filling them, it has to be eliminated out of the budget, because a principal is going to say, I have this position allocated to me. Why are you not approving it? But if it's not budgeted, all you have is all you have. I mean, trying to explain to the principal or anybody or any department head that those monies or those headcounts that were allocated were based on ESSER money, they're not going to understand. They don't care where the money came from. Let me be honest with you. All they know is they have this number of employee or position budgeted to them. To them, they feel they have the right to it, and they do. unfortunately, we cannot afford it. So we have to scale back, downsize, reorganize, realign, whichever word you want to use. That's what we're doing. Any question on that? But it translates to $7.5 million savings for 12 months. Let's not forget we are 6 months into the fiscal year. I have to quantify something. Those positions you see in there, some of them are teachers, some of them are administrators. Because of the contract of the teachers, you're not really going to attain that much savings. You can move them back into the classroom if they're administrators. You can move them back to the classroom to be teachers from where they were. However, the teachers' contract or teachers' union contract, you can't push them down to a lower level and pay them that lower level. Their contract protects them to that high level salary till after about a year or so, then it will dwindle down. So you're going to have to bear that cost, full cost. But the only thing, you get them into the classroom to fill vacancies and reduce use of temporary agency employees. So which is good. At least we'll get qualified teachers in the classroom. Let's look at it that way, to teach. So those are the factors of that category. The next category, which is Tier 2. Under Tier 2, the same scenario applies, which is maintainers, electricians, ITS help desk. In 2022, 20 positions in total were budgeted in that category. In 2025, which is current year, 34 positions are budgeted in current year. Those positions, again, we're allocated based on ESSA money. As far as maintainers are concerned, 10 maintainers were added with ESSA money to catch up with remodeling the schools and, doing capital improvement in the schools, which lasted for 4 years. We did a lot with ESSA money, with improvement of HVAC, the air conditioning system, the heating system, and remodeling of the bathroom. So those maintenance were needed, and they came in handy. But unfortunately, we cannot sustain the maintenance or retention of those positions. They're not filled. So most of these positions are not filled anyway. Some of the ones that are filled, we'll probably try as much as we can to reduce them through attrition where possible. So all in all, 22 positions were added with ESSA money. We're retaining 20 of them and reducing it by 14. And that will give you $1.1 million savings for a full year. Since we're half into the year, you're looking at almost 500, call it about $600,000. However, I have to quantify. If you lay someone off, these are regular employees. If you lay them off, they have 6 months to collect unemployment, which the city pays directly. The Bridgeport district or city of Bridgeport does not have unemployment insurance. They don't contribute. It's pay as you go. Every dollar an ex-employee collects comes directly out of the district pocket, one-on-one, including the city. Yes. If people don't know that, I will correct everyone. That's it. That is the fact. Danielle pays the bills. She knows. It's one-on-one. Any questions?
All right.
I mean, some people are looking amazed, but that's the fact.
We're going to take questions. Mr. Traber?
Yeah, I was just waiting for her to turn on my mic, that's all.
Okay.
I wanted you to be clear with your language. The board pays,
Okay, I'm sorry.
right?
The board
That's
pays.
what you're trying to say.
The board pays.
We would have to pay for that.
The board will have to pay for that.
So if we laid off a teacher in January, that teacher would collect unemployment. and the board would pay for that unemployment.
That is correct.
So the savings for us is minimal.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I understand, having come over from the city side to the board side, that applies to both employers.
Yes, it does.
So you get, you confuse the language, but I wanted to be clear for
Okay.
the sake of my
I-
understanding
you-
because if you were telling me the city had to pay for it, then I would say, well, that's too bad for them. But I understand.
I have to
I just-
apologize.
No, I just-
It's gonna take me a while
No,
to,
I
it's
get
gonna
it,
take
I
me a
get it.
while to
I just
reprogram
wanted to be
myself,
clear for this
reprogram
discussion.
myself,
Yes,
please.
I wanted to be clear. I also wanted to be clear, what's the difference in cost? You said some of these positions aren't filled.
Yep.
So in the particular facility where there's an open position
Mhm.
and it's being filled right now by a substitute.
Right.
In some cases, a permanent sub, some cases, a non-permanent sub.
Mhm.
What's the difference in cost? Do we know that?
If you, relative to.
Let's
teachers-
take first the permanent sub. Let me just be clear, Dr. Avery or whoever we're looking at over in that direction, or Mr.
Which positions are you referring to?
Hmm?
Are they teachers or they're regular clerks?
Let's take for the sake of my question.
Yep.
A classroom teacher.
Okay.
That position's not filled.
Mhm.
And so we have a full-time, a permanent sub in that classroom. So if we found a permanent, a full-time teacher,
Mhm.
what would be the difference in cost?
Well, just this cost, when you say a permanent sub, meaning a sub from the agency?
Yes.
Okay. The only savings you're gonna get is the savings by disposing or sending that agency sub back to the agency. But the teacher is gonna fill the position at a much higher salary of the teacher, which makes, don't get me wrong, I think we'll get a better quality from a certified
Well,
teacher.
that much I can speak to. I'm just curious what the actual, you're the numbers man.
Right.
I'm curious what
it's-
the actual difference in cost is.
In a year, a sub from the agency is probably about $50,000. A teacher, when you hire a teacher, full-time teacher, you have to pay the teacher depending on their grade and years of experience. You have to pay them their salary per contract. You have to contribute, the district has to contribute towards their health insurance, which runs about $26,000 average, and contribute towards their MRF. So to hire a teacher, 10 years old, 10 years, 10-year teacher, you look at $100,000.
Okay, but right now, I believe the starting pay is about $50,000.
About $53,000.
Yes.
Okay, so it's the 53 plus benefits.
Plus $26,000, so $27,000 in health insurance, depending on their class.
Right,
If they're
right,
class 3,
right,
it's much more.
Right,
Plus their Medicare cost.
and their pension.
No, the state pays.
Okay,
The state pays
Gotcha.
the pension for the teachers. We only pay pension for regular employees.
okay, so we're looking at a difference of about 30,000 then.
Yep, 30, depending on the years of experience. 30,
No,
40,
I get that you're paying more for an experienced teacher, but a starting teacher,
Right,
okay,
right,
I got you.
right. Mhm.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
So,
And
So,
I
go ahead.
I have other questions about this overall, but I would rather Mr. Naquo continue
Mhm.
with his presentation and come back to a question about some of the other stuff.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so that's pretty much it. The third category, which is the academic and students, the same scenario. 79 positions were allocated in 2020. 111 are currently allocated in current year, which is a 32 head count increase. We're eliminating 17 of those. So if you compound the three categories, a total of 161 positions were allocated in 2020 fiscal year. With ESSA money, it went up to 269 positions. We're deciding to downsize, realign, or reduce them by 81, still retaining about 27 more beyond 2020, funded with ESSA money. Again, we'll digest the first phase of our move, then we might come back depending, because as we got into this whole gap closing measures, we started finding some languages that doesn't really translate to money the very first, within the 6 months, the way we anticipated. And that's what it takes when anybody tells you they're going to close a budget gap. You don't have every time bomb contract language in your head. It's when you start flipping pages, you're still finding what you can do and what you cannot do, what you can get away and what you cannot get away. And every union contract is different and unique. Yep. Any more questions? With all due respect, in total, the 81 positions will translate to $10.5 million in a year. However, let me quantify it again. The first three categories, the I's and the M's and the T's, are teachers. You can only bring them, move them to the classroom. However, the assistant principals, you still have to pay them their regular salary, even if you move them down. Reduce it by $1,000. That's all you're getting. So the savings on those three categories for this year is not all there, or it's not there in a way. Depends how you want to present it. The only savings you have is the other unions, which is $3.1 million, which is 6 months into the fiscal year, which is $1.5 million. They're going to collect unemployment for 6 months, which is probably another $500,000 before the fiscal year ends. So you're going to net $1 million savings. But the whole savings kicks in next fiscal year, which is 12 months of next fiscal year. But the 6 months remaining in this fiscal year, there are some prices to pay, there are some ramifications, there are some, some obligations to fulfill. And we have to maintain or carry them in the COBRA rate. They're entitled to COBRA rate, and we have to carry them in COBRA rate. About 60, maybe about 60 days. Don't quote me, about 60 days, somewhere around there. And that's pretty much so. For this year, it's going to be a struggle. I'm going to be honest with everyone. The numbers are not coming out the way. Numerically, it tallies up, but it doesn't all come into play into savings this year because of timing, delay. Nature has to take its course for the whole savings to kick in. Yeah. I mean, I hope I'm clear as to how it works. I mean.
Mr. Sokolovic?
Thank you. I got several questions. I don't know if it's going to be all for Nestor. It's all on his sheet, though. We might have to.
That's fine. Go ahead.
We'll do a combination.
Yeah. Okay. Because. All right. So the first question I've got is about central office staff and 2-week furlough. Good majority of central office staff is salaried employees. So how would that work? Would it be a percentage reduction of salary?
It will be through the chair, if I may.
Yep.
It will be a percentage reduction. 2 weeks furlough translates about 5.6% of an annual salary. That's pretty much what it is. So you're basically getting a pay reduction of 5.6% approximately for the year.
But it's not like a run-of-the-mill furlough where they'll be off for those 2 weeks. They'll be still working, but at a 5% reduction.
If you're giving somebody 2 weeks furlough, you can stagger their days off over 6 months without jeopardizing the operation of the central office. Ideally, that's the way it's done. Managerially, that's a more prudent way to do it. You give them 6 months to exercise, use their 10 days. I mean, it would be very unfair to not pay somebody for 2 weeks and have them work for the 10 days. That's like pushing the envelope. But again, I've done it before, don't get me wrong, but
Okay, my next question has.
Dollar-wise or percentage-wise?
It's approximately about, I think, $75,000
Right.
savings
Mhm.
that will be given back to the district is my understanding. Total, yes, sir. About $70,000 to $75,000. You know,
You really don't, through the chair, you really don't have a whole lot of people not in the union. For now, you can only do it by getting away with people not in the union,
right.
per se. Whatever 2 weeks follow, you're gonna have to talk to the union, agree with the union, pretty much. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, yes, I still got a few more. A couple more questions. Actually a bunch because some might come to me. It seems that some of our positions are being scaled back a little further than the ESSER dollars. For instance, the last update we got is for the 23-24 positions that'll be reduced. I believe this was the 23-24 budget presentation. We had 9 assistant principals that was said to be ESSER. Are we shifting more positions because more positions were shifted to ESSER from the year 23-24? I mean, it's from 22-23 into 23-24 budget. Was there an accounting entry, journal entry, or?
We're using, through the, Madam Chair, we're using 2020 as the base, which is pre-ESSER. Positions were added interim 21, 22, 23, incrementally with ESSER money. So the best thing is to go back to your original base. Because if you don't go back to your original base and use a diluted base,
Yes.
you're using a wrong base to begin with.
Right, so, okay, so assistants principals are currently at 46, and we was at 27, so 19 additional were added since then. And we're going to SS 18, so we will have one more.
We still have one more extra.
We'll have one more
Yep.
assistant principal.
Yep.
And what metrics are we going to use to decide which schools lose their assistant principals?
HR can answer that for you.
Good evening, everybody. So when it comes to the assistant principals, we're just gonna be following the contract, the language of the contract to a T, and we're just gonna go from seniority. After the 18 cuts are made by seniority, then we're gonna look at the district as a whole and see where we might have to reassign assistant principals from one school to another to make up for, inadequacies that happen because you might be cutting. The least senior might be 3 from one school, but you can't leave that school with, 2 assistant principals. So we might have to move one from another school over. So we'll have to, after these cuts are made, we'll have to look at the schools and see what the needs are and move them around at that point.
Right. Okay, for those of you who weren't here last go around, one of the considerations was schools under 500 was one of the first to lose.
Right. And for the, in just 6 months ago, we just added 12 assistant principals to schools who never had any assistant principals.
Oh.
So those will be, one of the first considerations to be looked at.
And are all these assistant principals do they all have time within the district and bumping rights?
So the way, and I'm glad you brought that up because I just wanted to clarify on the BCAS contract. So the way the contract reads is that if an administrator is displaced, is laid off, and there's no position below them that's open or that they can bump into, they can go into a teaching position. And as long as they're in the certification. So for instance, if an assistant principal, one of these new 12 assistant principals who don't have much time in the district, have a math certification, well, they can go down to an open position in a school that may have a math teaching position, and they can go back into the classroom if that's what they choose to do. Not many will have bumping rights, although there will be some that will have bumping rights because they've been in the district for a little longer, or they have teaching experience prior to being moved to assistant principal, so they'll be able to bump. But with the open amount of teaching positions throughout the district. My best guess is most will be able to go into the teaching positions if they want to.
Okay, thank you. So basically what you're saying is somebody who's just coming into the district from another district will not be able to bump a 2-year teacher.
They won't be able to bump, no. They'll be able to go into an open position, and we're, call it fortunate
Right.
position where we have so many openings and vacancies that they'll be able to go into that. And as Nestor was explaining, just to give you a little clearer view, so for that first year, they'll still make the same salary they are now. They'll just be minus $1,000. The second year, they'll be 25% less the difference between the teaching and the administrator's pay. And then the third year is when they'll go into the teacher's contract.
Right,
Pay.
right, and that's opposed to the central office, non-represented employees. Those will be pure savings.
Yes,
starting immediately.
Yes.
And yeah, and those bumping rights, those basically hold through all the contracts.
So every contract's a little bit different. With when you're talking about the non-certified contracts, the language is a little bit different. In seniority, even between, say, ASME 1522 and NAGE, the definition of seniority is different between the two. So yes, everybody has bumping rights. The majority of the positions that Dr. Avery has presented here are entry level, so there really wouldn't be much bumping going on. But when you get up to those levels, yes, there would be bumping.
And I've got another question, of course. We're looking at, I'm looking at facilities again. Facilities, there's a proposal to, we had 7 and 20 and now 25. We're looking to eliminate, that's probably from Mr. Nicole, 18 positions and with 15 remaining positions. Now, if these positions, I believe Mr. Traber raised up and he brought it into a comparison with the school teachers, but are these jobs being filled on a per diem basis from an outside revenue source?
Yeah, point of clarification. Those are 18 positions that were added from
Right.
20 to 20,
Right.
from 2020 to now.
Mhm.
So those are not eliminated.
So we're looking at
next-
15
yeah,
and 25.
yeah.
Okay, you're right. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Proposed to tier
confidential
2
draft
staffing
document.
reductions. Proposed to tier 2 staffing reductions.
Yeah, so we're looking at a revised headcount of 10. Are those positions currently being worked?
No.
Whether it's by
So, Madam Chair, I had indicated that those, okay, let me clarify it. In 2020, they had 7 maintainers. There was a reclassification. Make a long story short, there are 18 maintainer positions added. We're only reducing 10 out of those 18. Make a long story short.
Mm-hmm.
Those 10 we are downsizing, we are strictly added with ESSA money.
But are those bodies in building?
No, they're not. I had indicated earlier, those are mainly vacant positions for maintainers. Even if somebody is there, we're gonna have to do it through attrition. Not too many, most of them are vacant.
Through you, Mr. Superintendent, may I hear from the Director of Facilities?
George.
And he's free to answer the questions, whether you like his answers or not.
Not a problem. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Garcia, we know the extent of the district. We know that the buildings, we know that the buildings are in disrepair. We know you don't have enough people to cover your square footage as it is. Do you foresee being able to upkeep the square footage with these reductions or proposed reductions?
It's going to be a challenge. I'm not going to sit here and say that, everything is going to be perfect. We put some provisions in place. We've made strategic investments during the ESSER dollars that came through. We've bought in some additional equipment to help automate the operation of the department. 10 positions are hurt. Just like the rest of this list, there's going to be pain throughout the whole entire district. And we understand that we have to be part of the solution here. The 10 positions went above and beyond the 150 that we were budgeted in the past. During ESSER, we're given an additional 10. I believe that was brought to the board at the time that we needed to increase the workforce. We didn't bring anyone else new on after that 10 maintainer allocation. But, we're going to do the best we can to maintain the district. We've invested in our people through training and certification. We've automated from end to end. Everything that we do now is, on a system where we can manage in a different kind of way. But it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, I think one of the things Mr. Garcia and I talked about is making sure that, we have to shift if we need to shift. We have to provide more if we have to provide more, but that's just going to be those baby steps that we take as we move through, because every department is going to be impacted in some form or fashion at some point in time in the near future. So we have to, again, as long as we feel that we're working as a team to make it work, if we have to adjust, we'll do that. That's just part of what we do, and everybody is willing to do and step out there and say, hey, what is it going to take for us to stay alive? I think that's important. And so, again, we've talked about that. We understand the needs on the facility side. Again, it's going to hurt, like he said, and he knows that. And we've talked about that, tirelessly. And so, but we know we have to do what we have to do, and we're going to make sure that we do the best we can on that.
And I want to make one thing clear. Part of the plan is that we're not going to lay these folks off. This is through attrition to ensure that, we're not hurting the worker, because at the end of the day, these folks, they're really putting in a tremendous amount of work, as we know now. So the last thing we want to do is discourage the folks that are working very hard in the district currently. We had some time to spend with all of our custodians today, along with our nutrition workers. And, when you see these folks and you feel the energy for what it is that they do and the work that they put in, we don't want to eliminate a job and take a job from someone. But if we have to do this, we'll do it through attrition.
Right. Yeah, while I'm concerned with the jobs and the people behind them, I'm a bit more concerned with the upkeep of the facilities, because we've basically had, with the school closures and the school facilities master plans, we've got buildings that were deteriorating so much because your staff is stretched so thin already as it is, that we are contemplating closing buildings, not because, but because they are so, I don't want to say poorly kept, but it is poorly kept, but through no fault of your own, through the thin stretch of the resources that we have. I forget what you told me the optimal number of square footage to maintenance is, but you're way below that.
Ideally, it's 171 to cover every schedule. Obviously we have to do things through overtime. But once again, we're trying to be as innovative as we possibly can to close the gap.
Right.
But there is a gap.
Right. My concern is that we'll end up with more Hall Edisons, what's the third one? Bryant's, that are considered for closing later down the line because of possibly deferred maintenance that we cannot get around to. So in my mind, cuts to this department is almost counterintuitive. I mean, I first in my decision matrix, what I think of is first preserve academics at all costs. This is going to be a close second because of what we just went through and what we are going through and what we are about to go through with the poor condition of some of our facilities where our children got to learn. So I would behoove us to think really carefully about this one. Okay, yeah, thank you. That's all I got for.
Can I have a point of clarification? Those positions, the 10, are not filled right now, as from what Mr. Nichols said.
I'm not sure if all of the positions are filled. We've got to reconcile the numbers in terms of what is filled and what isn't. If they are, my recommendation would be that we don't eliminate the position. It happened through attrition over time, just because we need a runway to be able to solidify some things out in the field. We have to do some reshuffling. We're going to have to do, we have to look at every single schedule in the district, redo every schedule in the district based on the new number. So there's some work to be done. But, I have the complete faith of the folks that are doing the work every day out in the field.
And I think also, once we have the facility master's plan, we could probably have a better picture of what we need, and that's going to be in like stage 4.
Yeah,
from
that's
what
gonna be
I
my first.
overheard.
And I think that's going to be that conversation where, the board will direct us to shift where you feel we need to shift. And I think that's going to be important as that data source is coming to the board within the next month or so. So again, when we talk about not filling the positions, until, through attrition, that gives a little leeway before anything is finally done. And remember, when I spoke and when Nestor spoke, we talked about you're not going to realize these savings all of a sudden. That's where this comes to play, and we know that. I think the board knows that. We're going to have to shift along the way because the need may be somewhere else. I mean, if we have one of the steam boilers go out, I mean, we have to look at facilities and sites and we just have to shift. And we know that, some of those things are very, very old and it could happen tomorrow. I hope not, but it could. So shifting is part of what we're ready to do. And I think that's going to be something that the board's going to help us. Again, I think that's that 3 and 4 phase is going to get deep conversation about that. So I'm excited about that as well.
All right, and I think this is probably be my final question before a statement. We've got, I think it may be a typo on community facilitator. Is
that community facilitator is a person that works with.
I know what the position is. It just says fiscal year 25-1, 20-0, -1, and then it says gap reduced headcount. Oh wait.
Because the position didn't.
It says revised headcount 1.
Right, because the position last year is when the position was added. And so we're just.
Got it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we're taking away.
Yeah,
okay, we're taking away the position.
That's why I like that
because
the
it was
number.
added. So we feel that we could do that.
Right, okay. No, that's my mistake. I'm sorry. It's no typo.
That's okay.
And I would like to just finish off by making this, what are you looking for tonight? Are you looking for approval of the tier 1?
Go ahead.
I mean, through Madam Chair, I think what we're here is basically presenting to the board the first tier of the plan and to let the board know that, yes, the $6 million that I presented the very first night to be attained through layoff is not out there because of the intricacies of the contract. And what that means, since it's not all there this year, yes, it will balloon or come into production or fulfillment next year. What that means, because it's not all there this year, that means we're going to have to tap into using additional internal service fund. And if we use that additional internal service fund to balance current year budget, you're creating a bigger hole for next year.
So you're basically looking for.
We're basically asking to proceed full steam.
Actually, yeah.
To answer your question.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And that's correct.
And I would like to conclude by saying, for the first time since 2019, when I saw all this stuff coming, I could see a way forward and a way out, and have some hope for the future.
And I appreciate you saying that, because that's one of the things that we've been behind closed doors talking about. Yes, we understand where we are. Yes, we're not here to blame anybody, but we're here to provide a plan. This plan right here will get us in a good direction to, have deeper conversations. And I think that's the important part, because I can tell you, looking into this issue, it's going to go deeper than just this level right here, guys. Mm-hmm. It's going to go all the way down to the classroom in order for us to get out. And so it's crucial conversations, it's tough conversations, but it's conversations that are needing to be had now. And we can't, fight amongst each other about what needs to happen. You have professionals that have been through this process. Give us the opportunity to make the recommendations, and we'll give you the facts behind the recommendations. And if you support us, we're going to try to see the plan out. That's what we do. And I'm very, passionate about that. And I just need an opportunity to kind of show, what we can do to kind of help, improve budgetary means for district. Because if we don't, our kids are going to fail. And we're going to stand right beside them failing if we don't try. This is our chance to try. Let's get together and let's try to make this bad baby work. I'm very excited about it. We just need some blessings here. And will the plan work 100%? Probably not. But I can tell you, we're gonna try really, really hard. You have some very competitive individuals around the table here. We're excited to do the work, and we just need to join together and make it happen. So,
Thank you. I'm gonna go to some board members who haven't had a chance to speak yet. Ms. Casimir?
Oh, yeah. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
yes,
hear you.
ma'am.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to clarify for the parents in the community that don't know what the word attrition means because it's been thrown around a lot. So I just wanted to kind of back up and just so I understand when Mr. Garcia says attrition, that means that happens when employees retire, they resign, or does that mean that just that that position is just not replaced? Is that correct or no?
Through Madam Chair, that is correct. That's what attrition means.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, just so for people who don't know what the meaning of that word is. Thank you very much. That's it. That's all I had.
Thank you. We're gonna go to Mr. Benahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This situation stressed me out so badly because I know all this position is very important. I know this situation we're going through, but I'm just look, Dr. Avery, the financial knowledge, the section 1. I know you can work with that, but when you go to section 2, that hurt me a lot because I know a lot of people in this position take care of students very well. And then facility, and everybody know a very different facility because these people, without them, our school's not going to be ready. It's not going to be open. I know they're always short of staff. And I know the situation, they're cutting on facility. How that Mr. Garcia and the staff, they're going to be working. Because sometimes when there's day off or lay off or holidays, this gentleman's everyone, because I'm a witness, I see it. They work so hard. Or anything happen in one of the schools. And something they short. And they never say no to Mr. Garcia. And then our schools have to be ready to open it. I know our teachers and everybody, when they come to school, how the school is open, how they clean, boiler, light, especially the snow. Look at how bad it's raining right now. We don't know later they're going to call Mr. Garcia. Mr. Garcia, we have a problem in the basement. We got a flood or something like that. So it hurt me so much. Especially, we got literacy, painting. We know we got painting. Oh my God. We know how many, it's one and a half, right, Mr. Garcia? So, all right, especially the school counselor, the social work, these people work so hard for the students we have in each school. I'm a witness very well. So if we have to be careful in this part, in section 2, Dr. Avery, you have to take care of that because, I'm not agreed to be special facility. These people work so hard. Sometimes they short. One person sometimes work like a three-man job. I'm a witness of that. So I just wanted that for the record. I know we had to work about the budget. I understand. But with section 1, you can take care of that part, Dr. Avery. But the section 2, we have to be careful in that area because I'm not happy with, with this situation is going on. I know we have to save. I understand the process, but we don't want to go crazy because I don't want somebody to do the job of 3 or 4 at the same time.
Yes, sir. And I respect that, Madam Chair. I respect that. And I think that's going to be an important task that we've done to be able to be very sensitive to every single position in the district. Again, I've had an opportunity to talk to several people that's positions that are on this list. And it's not a joyful thing to be able to say, hey, your position may be eliminated. Even at the top level, I've had to do that, over the last, 2 days, and that's difficult in itself. So again, even at staff members at a lower level as a custodian or a painter or whatever, that's difficult in itself. And this is the time of year where it's even more sensitive that you have to be very careful and timing and the things that we do. And so we tried to do that, in a way to where it's a little bit more manageable. But this is a tough gig when it comes to trying to eliminate things. And so we will make sure that we take that initiative and make sure that we pause when we need to and take a different direction when we need to be as well. So again, that's everything that we've been doing. And that's why it's been so difficult and it's taken so long to even get here. And even getting here, we've had knockout and drag out fights behind the scenes, trying to figure out, no, not me, not my, I mean, we've done all of that, and it's a great exercise for us because a lot of us had never done that before. And so and we know we have deeper conversations that's coming, that we're going to have to be able to say, okay, let's do this. And then when we bring it to the board, it's going to be even more conversations, tough conversation that needs to be had. So I respect that.
I know we can do it, Dr. Avery, but I don't want the kids, staff, and parents get hurt.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chief, if I may.
You want to add something?
If I may clarify for Board Member Benham, just for clarity, between the social workers and the counselors, we have about 95 of them. And 15 of them were added with ESSA money to tame or control the trauma that happened during COVID. And we're only reducing 9 out of the 15 that were added, meaning we still have a lot more there between social workers and counselors. We have 95. We budgeted for 95. 15 of those 95 was added with ESSA money. We're only reducing between the two categories 9 positions. So we're still retaining some of them that were budgeted with ESSA money. The big question is, can we afford those retentions? That's what we have to face down the road. That is the big question down the road. We might have to revisit because the way things are going, I'm not trying to scare anyone, but going back to FY 2020 level, if you cannot afford it, you cannot afford it. And let's not forget that 4 years has gone by from 2020. Cost of living increase has been added each of those 4 years. So just even if you retain your headcount from 2020, between cost of living increase, health insurance, MRF, pension increase, wage increase, the district budget at minimum goes up by $10, $12 million every year. When you add all those components of cost of living each year, we have not been getting $10, $12 million increase between the city and the state. The district has been sustaining those increases, annual cost of living increases. They've been sustaining it with ESSA money, which has dissipated. But the cost of living increase did not go away. You can't be carrying a load that you were using some other money to carry. It's not feasible. So what I'm trying to say here, cutting back to 2020 level headcount, you still have cost of living increase that has accumulated over 4 years, compounded effect that your base increase did not go up by. Can't do miracles. I'm being blunt and honest.
Thank you.
I mean, that's the fact.
Sorry, I heard that, audience. And he can. Dr. Avery, just a point of clarification, and then we'll get to Ms. Baptiste Perez. We do have the Life Bridge grant, and that are you hoping to
Yes.
use that towards social work and school counseling?
Yes, we're working with them now on how we're going to transition, that piece out. In addition to that, they are also looking for additional staff members to bring on. And so they're going to work with us, with these staff members to try to recoup a few of them to come over to work with them as well. I'm not sure the number of those, but we're working with them, in collaboration to make sure that our kids will get those funding, because they're going to be really integrated into our schools. And so I think that's going to be a little relief there that we're excited about.
Thank you. Ms. Baptiste Perez?
My first question is, what impact of laying off executive staff will have on closing the educational gap?
Can you rephrase that?
What impact will it have laying off executive staff? What will be the impact on closing the educational gap?
What would be the impact for laying off executive staff to the academic impact? You know,
Closing the educational gap.
Closing the educational gap. Again, I think, you know, in my professional opinion, you know, I think it will have an impact on it, you know, but you also have to look at the need of the district to even survive, to be able to do that internally. And so I think you have to kind of balance that out a little bit, you know, because, you know, do we want to fix the problem internally, or you want the state to come over to take over the district, and we would have no authority on trying to close that gap. And as you look at historical things across the district, over the years, I mean, there has been a substantial limited impact to the educational gap in the district. And so I think, again, trying to figure that out, is this plan going to be able to do that? I'm not 100% sure, because we've cut a lot of executive staff with this proposal, and it was really the push from, several members of the board to make sure that we do this. But again, in my professional opinion, over the last 3 weeks, we tried to kind of balance that out with the hopes that it's not going to impact the educational gap no more than what previous years have done. So again, it's the hope of what we're doing to try to balance that out a little bit. I can't quantify that, at the moment. All I can do is kind of gauge to see how things are going to work over the next couple of months.
Okay, so I'll simplify it. Do you believe it's going to have a negative impact, or is it going to maintain the status quo?
I'm hoping it's going to maintain at least the status quo.
And that's the status quo in terms of academics.
Excuse me?
And that would be in terms of academics. These cuts will just maintain the status quo.
Well, I'm hoping to supersede that, but again, I'm hoping to at least maintain. And again, I'm not for sure if it's going to even do that based on the outlook of what I see. So if we don't have a substantial impact in everything that we do, when it comes to teaching and learning across the district, it may not have any impact on it. So, but again, if we can, figure out ways to be able to impact the academic, environment in Bridgeport Public Schools, there's a possibility of a greater impact.
My next question is, it was brought up regarding the LifeBridge grant. I know when I was chair and working with Dr. Carmela Levy-David, she applied to over $97 million in grants. When will we start to hear back about receiving them? LifeBridge was one of them. And based off of the substantial amount of numbers and grant applications she accomplished, when are we going to start hearing back? Do you have any updates in terms of the grants like LifeBridge that she applied and got for our district, and when we'll have any outcomes?
The grants department is in Nestor's division. Nestor, do you have any update?
No, I'll have a meeting with the grants director on Friday. To be very, very honest with you, we've been busy doing this financial. It was not an easy puzzle to solve, because you pick it up here, you find this obstruction, you find this, hindrance, and you have to refine it to make sense. So we've consumed ourselves with this financial data that you're seeing here for the last week. So Friday, I will be meeting with the grants director. The goal, I'm going to set a new standard, a new goal as to how much grant is expected of the grants office in a year. Because we need all hands on deck for clarity, LiveBridge, the district basically co-signed the application for LiveBridge. The grant application was done by LiveBridge company. We just co-signed for them, just for clarity.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've spoken to the past with with Mr. Garcia with facilities, like partnering with other organizations. That's how we received the environmental grant for, I believe, Moran and Johnson School.
Right.
My next comment, and I think I'm just going to transition because I did bring up Mr. Garcia. While serving, I had the opportunity to sit down with other academically successful districts, and it's their motto, and they have academic success, that they were okay with cuts to their facilities department in order not to make cuts to their director of literacy, director of math, director of science, director of communication, like the cuts that we're about to make. I want to say that it's a bit of a consequence for the board for operating outdated and empty facilities, especially after the most recent Crystal report was released. My next question is, I was unfortunately driving with the initial report. Can someone explain to me where in this new chart is the chief academic officer?
I can do that. I have repositioned that position to the assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. Same position, different title.
And then my next question is, where's the deputy role? Now, my understanding is that you're acting superintendent while Dr. Carmel Levy-Davis out on medical leave or on leave. So there's a process for the board with interim. And so I'm looking at this, and you've looked like you've made an executive decision that you're going to keep the role, but that's something that the board ultimately has to have. So where's the deputy role?
It's on the screen now.
I don't see it in the proposed organizational.
Where's your role going to be in the proposed, in the new chart? You're eliminating your position.
Right, I'm eliminating the position. It's vacant, but that's a discussion that the board will need to have. So when I go back to my position, the position will be there. But if we don't, again, remember I said that the savings is a very fluid thing. You're going to see some of that now, and you may not later. So again, that's an option that can be discussed at personnel contract committee with the board, and so if the board feels, okay, let's make sure he gets his position back, it's going to be there, and it's not going to be able to be added to that salary. So I'm not trying to make insinuation that that position is not going to be there. It's a recommendation, it's a proposal, and I'm very open to the direction of the board.
My next question is, what are the proposed dates for these stages, especially when it comes to stage 4?
Stage 1 and 2 are pretty urgent. I think we need to do that as soon as possible. 3 and 4 will start in January, February, when the facilities plan come out. We are also, when the first committee meeting for the board, whenever they reorganize the committees, we will shift those topic areas here. Go back. We will shift these areas, the software programs. I have the department chairs working through all the different programs that we purchase in the district, all the curriculum approaches that we're purchasing in the district. They've given me a list of all cell phones. I have a list of all vendors, contracts that we have in the district, and that's going to go in a deeper conversation with the board committees. So again, and that's a very tedious process. So that's going to take a little bit. So starting in January, I think we'll have a better time frame when the board give us a direction of what they want us to eliminate, are the recommendations we bring to the committees of what to eliminate. So again, it's a very fluid process. So it's going to take a little bit. So I can't really put a timeline on that. The other part, the phase 4 is those initiatives to talk about if we need to bring up school closures and things like that, and those cost saving initiatives. That's something that the board's going to have to give us. We can't close schools, this year because there's no time to do that. And so the board may say, okay, if we do this, or if we close schools, we're going to put a time of 2026 or January 2027. So it depends. So I would love to get that feedback from the board as to putting a timeline to it.
And could you clarify what roles fall into the urgent category? Again, I'm just looking at the chart, and so it might be just easier for you to tell me what are the roles that you're categorizing as urgent.
Technically, all three, I call the, if you go back to the presentation, those 3 areas, go back. It says proposed staff reductions.
If you're changing it on your side, it's not showing on Teams. So if you're changing the slides, it's not showing.
These proposed staff reductions, all of these positions here. Next slide says tier 2, which is all of these positions and all of these positions, to end up with that approximately $10.5 million worth of savings. And knowing the fact that we have to initiate these in order to even kind of get close to that $10 million cost savings.
And so let me go on my side and see. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, I'm concerned, especially given the content that was discussed in executive session regarding the cost of special education. Do you believe it's wise to cut the executive director of special education or anything from that department, including multilingual learners?
I think it's wise to kind of look at exactly how we're looking at restructuring the special education division in order to be able to kind of, streamline the services that we're using and doing within the district. So again, it's one of those processes that we're going to have to be able to do to kind of to work through all of that. There may be an opportunity for me to go back to the board to talk about additional positions in special education in order, if we're able to kind of save in certain areas, be able to come back to help with that restructuring of special education. I think one of the other things with the extensive cost of special education services in the state of Connecticut, there's several superintendents across Connecticut that are going to be joining forces to really look at and push the state of Connecticut to help support that excess cost for special education services in each of our districts, to be able to pull and get a little bit more support in saving some of those dollars. We have neighboring school districts that are bringing special education services back to their district. I think Sheldon is one. I think Waterbury is another one. They're doing some really innovative, small-scaled opportunities that I will be engaging with those superintendents and board members over the next couple of days and weeks to be able to look at that, because you're right, special education, it's draining districts. And we have to be able to kind of manage that a little bit.
Can you clarify, what do you mean by streamlining services to special education?
Well, just really trying to look at what we're paying for, speech services and occupational services, social services. Right now, we have vendors that are like providing services at all different types of rates. We have tons and tons of different contracts at different costs all across the district, and streamlining that is to we should have or go out for an RFP for speech services or language services and be able to say we want to be able to provide our companies to come in and provide a bid for those services at a very standard rate, not all these different prices for different services based on someone submitting a contract to the district. So again, there's a lot of streamlining to try to save money in that division. And we just have to kind of work through trying to make that happen.
Can you just clarify again? I thought that was already in process when I was working with Dr. Levy David, that we were in the process of at least trying to streamline and to issue RFPs. Has that hasn't started?
And not to my knowledge. I think one of the conversations is we've been talking with legal, our special ed legal staff, trying to figure out, trying to work on the contracts for special education. And so that's kind of what we've been doing and vetting and kind of working. And I think they're at a stage right now where they have at least the contracts where, especially for all these out of district placements that we have a single contract that now, hopefully starting next year, that every vendor that we send kids out for out of district placements, they're using our contract and we're not using their contract. So there's just a lot of little, nuances that we had to get the legal department into in order to streamline things a little bit. It started, but it just really hadn't really finalized in a way.
Okay. And then, again, I just could have missed it while driving. Is there anything in this plan regarding balancing classrooms? I know that was something that was also supposed to start already, district-wide. We can't have schools where some teachers are overburdened with near capacity 29 students and other schools where there's 7 kids in one classroom and it's not a special education classroom. Have we started that? Because I know that was also another initiative that should have taken place that should have yielded some cost savings.
Yes, ma'am. That is something that I know PJ and his offices are constantly working on. So I think we're waiting to the January timeframe to initiate some of those. And I think one of the things that we started is to really look at the high school level. And I know he is working with a team of individuals that's going to do some optimizations to those schedules and being able to kind of help us streamline that a little bit. So we're looking forward to some of that happening and be able to kind of streamline and getting those classroom balanced. So yes, that started, and I think we're looking for the January timeframe to bring those back into play again as well. Yes, ma'am.
Since it's already started, do we have any projections in terms of savings? I may have just missed it. Like I said, unfortunately, I was driving. How much in savings are we looking with balancing classrooms?
I don't have a number for you, but I can get with staff and see what we can do for you to get you some numbers of where we are. I'll get with Nestor and PJ, and we can come up with some dollars for you.
I'm going back to stage 3, since you said that's approximately in January, which is about 3 weeks. Are we looking at vendors in terms of our academic vendors that we're going to renegotiate with? So, for example, some of our online programs or programs that give students access to additional support while at home?
Absolutely. It's everything. Just really, I think there may be some duplicate, programs that are being utilized right now. And I think it's just really trying to look at a deeper look at, all programs in the district. Again, you have to understand the renewal process for some of those programs are at different stages. So we may end up needing to be able to come up with, $700,000 in June because the contract ends. And so if the contract ends, do we have a similar program that we can use or that we're using that we may not necessarily have to have that cost? So those are deep conversations that, again, the academic, committee should be able to have a deeper dive into as well, and just not let, administration just cut. We have to have a very thorough process and conversation around each of those programs and what do they do and how do they impact? What's the usage of them? Because we're paying for things that we may not even be using, you know. So why are you going to repay for it? Why are you going to keep that up again? So those are the analysis things that we have to do to look at those programs. So I would say every program that we have in the district that we have a contract for needs to be on the table for consideration to look at and compare with the other, again, like usage and those types of things.
I mean, my only follow-up comment to that is with regards to substituting qualities. In the past, this district has participated with vendors that were not research-based. And so it was, yes, a cheaper program, but our kids were used as lab rats and test dummies, to be quite frank. And so my follow-up to that is that, are we going to be looking at substituting quality just for pricing? Especially given that what I asked earlier about the cuts on executive staff will maintain the status quo. I want to make sure that children actually have access when they're home to materials that will actually help them academically grow.
Absolutely. I think one of the other things I would like to emphasize is that I have been reaching out to the state of Connecticut. The state of Connecticut has a lot of programs that are free to school districts that we may not be tapping into, and that is going to be another way that we're going to be able to save. And if the state of Connecticut is providing free softwares and programs to the district or to districts in Connecticut, I think they've been vetted by the state. They've been recommended by individuals across the state. And so I think we need to look at that as a district to see if we can tap into some of those that may be doing some of the same things that the programs that we're paying for. And so again, I think that's something, that we may have not done in the past. Because I know there's some of the things that over the last 3 weeks that has been come to my attention that I don't think we do. Right to read, some of the other things that I know we're not, utilizing within the district that are being funded by the state of Connecticut that we have to just at least consider.
My next question. So stage 4, I didn't really get a clear date, but will that include our facilities master plan and demographic study? And I thought that was supposed to be available February.
Yes, ma'am. I'm trying to kind of push them to get this out sooner. And so I'm hoping to, be able to, they're getting close. I think our next facilities meeting is the 16th, I'm thinking. Am I right?
Yes.
The 16th. They're going to do a combined presentation at the facilities committee to give the board an overview of where they are and how much more they have to do. So I'm hoping to really kind of get that, end of January, beginning of February, trying to make sure we get that and stay on that target date too. So yes, ma'am, that's going to be a huge part of those that tier 3 and 4 that the board's going to engage in, and then engaging the community in that way as well.
All right. I don't have any more questions at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Medina?
Yes, I'm not sure if I can be heard at this moment.
You heard?
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure because I'm using a different headphone. I don't have many questions, but I definitely have a few comments. And knowing that, this has been layers of layers of layers that's been, in the process, I just want to say thank you for the acting superintendent, Mr. Avery, for your valor. And also that goes beyond words. I don't have everybody's names in front of me, but and to your team, thank you again for helping us so we can actually have the information and data and to sit down and have honest conversations to be able to help our district as a whole. I like the info that was put forward, but I definitely would like to hear sooner than later, because I want to prepare with other people to advocate at the state level, to give us kind of like sooner than later, not right now, just to a number that will help us, make sound decisions moving forward, not only in this year, but also in next year, because, we have been in many conversations with the community and with other leaders in other cities and towns, and with educators, with superintendents, with legislators, with, board members. And we know that we have a problem in our state, and we're trying to come collectively to make resolutions and not just excuses. So thank you again for answering our questions. I know they've been all over the place and they've been challenging you, but you've been knocking it out of the park. So I appreciate your honesty. I'm sorry.
Do you have any more questions?
Who's that, me?
Yeah, do you have any questions or?
Actually, I said I didn't have any questions. I just
Okay.
had yeah. So, again, thank you. I know it's been a tough 3 weeks, and you've came up with this right now, and it's been with a plan. And we look forward to hearing more, because we want to be part of every single step, and that you're alone, but that we're going to be working together to, handle these matters, because this will be coming to us as a board. And we definitely going to have some more questions once we dissect all these numbers and information, because I need help. So I'll be meeting with whoever is able to, have time to sit down and go through this. So I appreciate your time, and your staff also that's been helping you in this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Traber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me start with a question that I didn't understand an answer to earlier. What is going on with the Chief Academic Officer position?
It's going.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's going to be moved to the assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction.
Okay. I do want to echo what has been said a couple of times, which is this is like the first time in a long time that we've seen an organizational chart. I've been asking for over a year, 2 years maybe, to see an organizational chart, and it's nice. I'm just trying to, this is a little confusing the way you've laid it out, but it's still something to work off of and try and understand sort of what we look like now. Somebody asked me for one a couple of months ago, and I said, I don't know. Let me see if I can get one. So I'm trying to understand your proposal tonight. And I feel like I heard Joe ask at the end, sort of, what is it you're hoping to do or get out of this? And I'm not quite sure what we're going to do tonight. I feel like we're sort of rushing into things because this is an hour and a half discussion that has a $10 million price tag on it, $10.5 million price tag. So it's a lot to take into account. I do appreciate the work that y'all have put into it because I know the severity of the problem that we're confronting. But it's also a whole lot of proposal you're put in there. And sometimes I hear the word exciting and think it's not exciting, it's devastating. Because the future is, as Yogi used to say, ain't what it used to be. We have a lot of turmoil ahead of us. So I do know that what you're doing is not work that we want to see done. We would love to be spending more money and seeing our program. And I know some of the folks here from Faith Acts and I and Jen Now have talked about what we need to do to get more resources so that our children have the same opportunities as children in wealthier school districts. So I know I hope and pray that we get there someday, and we're not having these kinds of discussions all too often. But I did have some other questions. I heard Ms. Baptiste Perez ask about the executive director of SPED. I sort of was looking at your chart and wondering, didn't understand the difference between the chief of special ed and the executive director of sped. So I sort of understood, do we need two different positions? I didn't understand what the difference was. I'm not even going to ask tonight because I know that what you're doing is trying to sort of make a little more sense out of this. I don't even understand what's the difference between the director of communication, internal and external communications. I mean, I'm just looking at this. Finally, I'm seeing what we supposedly have, and a lot of it just doesn't make any sense to me at all. And so as we go through this, I want to learn and understand more about what is this that we have, and that's what we haven't seen in a long time. And as we put the committees together and start analyzing what these structures are and why we have them, I know we will be asking you a lot more questions about why do we need this? What is this? Why can't we do something over here? And so I think that's where Joe's looking at it, and from his point of view, that's much more aligned with what Nestor's is. My point of view, which is not aligned with either of you, but it's all a healthy balance. I understand what Ms. Baptiste Perez is asking. Those questions are legitimate and helpful in terms of what she thought was going on and going to happen. So I think that we are moving in a good direction. It's not an exciting direction, but it is one that we need to move towards. I did not see in this at all what I thought I was going to see, and so I want to ask about it. I see the pre-COVID, where we are now presentation throughout this. I thought we were going to see what we added this year from last year. And I don't see that in here because we had great debates last winter to this winter about what we were adding to this year's budget that we thought we shouldn't have been adding at all. And so I thought I was going to see in here items that were added to this budget that we opposed adding. And I just thought that I understand why you're looking at 2020. I do understand that when we got the ESSER money that gave us the opportunity to spend a lot of money that we didn't have before. And I understand why that's so important. And that's the ESSER cliff that everybody all over the United States has been dealing with this year when the money expired this September. And that's the real problem that districts all over the nation are dealing with. But we in Bridgeport are also dealing with a problem which was created this year when we started spending more money than we should have in this year's budget that many of us thought should not have been spent this year because we knew the ESSER cliff was coming this year. And we had wisely saved money in our ISF because we knew the ESSER cliff was coming. And one of the first things that you said, Mr. Nicole, when you came here was, whoa, we dipped a little heavily into our savings. And we shouldn't have dipped so heavily into that savings. And we agreed with you, some of us. And so I thought we were going to see some of where we spent that money. The one that comes to mind immediately is that our relay program is now gone. We've ended that contract. We've gotten out of that contract. Some of us thought we never should have gotten into the contract. And so luckily we're not in it anymore. And I believe there are other contracts, programs, and expenses that we incurred. And so some of these positions I know that you're eliminating are positions that were created that never should have been created, and they're being eliminated. And so that's correct. And so I just thought we were going to see that a little more clearly, that we're eliminating some positions and programs and expenses that we created for this academic year, the 24-25 year, that are being eliminated. And so I thought we would see some of those expenses being reduced.
I could explain a little bit for you. If you look at the central office savings, that number on
yes, sir,
the proposed staff reduction slide.
Can you put that up on the screen,
I
please?
can.
Thank
That
you.
savings there is probably, I would say, 80 to 90% of the positions that were, so when you look at that line where it says assistant principals, that $2 million price tag there is probably close to that 12 to 14, 15 APs that we hired over the last year.
I'm sorry, 2 million where?
You see the assistant principals that, we added.
Oh, okay, so you're talking the APs, yes.
Right, so that 2,900,000, almost $3 million was just that staff category in itself. So when you look at that savings right there, that and some of the other positions that were placed takes care of what was pretty much, what we hired in at least 1 year or close to it. There's a few that's not there, but we can go back and provide that for the board, and we can bring that to finance committee as we move forward. I think that's important. But that number there, that $4,357,000 is probably what I say 80 to 90% of that price tag right there is the positions that we put in year and a half. Probably I would say a year.
Okay.
To be clear, I mean, we can vet some of those positions out that we're not, but
I understand those are positions.
an additional director of literacy, additional director of ELA, additional director of science, a director of communications, the human resource project assistant, the district teacher development specialist, the 3 of them last year. So again, I would say a majority of these positions were added last year. So.
Okay. But there were programs added this year too. I know that we debated on programs too. Some of which we may not be able to get out of.
I'm deferring the programs to the
further down the line. I get that.
So you're going to be able to see the relay contract in that. You're going to be able to see this is only staff, and what we spent on the staffing side of the house, because the programs are deep, and we spent a lot of money on academic curriculum that was needed. And so those are the things that's going to bubble up at the programs and the contracts conversation.
When you say, Dr. Avery, that was needed, I guess that I want to I don't want to spend a great deal of time on it because we'll come back to that later, as you said, down the line.
Yeah.
But my recollection, it was needed because we waited till the end of the year to decide on it. So I'll leave it at that because we're going to come to it later.
Absolutely. Again, I'm not here to blame timing.
No. I'm not blaming. I'm just saying my recollection is we dealt with it in June.
Yes, sir.
Some of that, yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I guess I'll leave it at that for now because we're asking us tonight to decide on authorizing.
I'll make a point of, there's no action items tonight.
There's
This is
no
a
action.
presentation.
Okay,
There'll be
I
another
got you.
meeting for action.
that's fine then. I'm comfortable with that. I wanted to be clear about the action item.
This is a presentation because
Okay.
there's so much in it.
Thank you. I
It's-
don't have the agenda in
should've-
front
yeah.
of me, so.
I'm going to to a board member who hasn't spoken yet, Mr. Woodson, and then I'll go back to you, Ms. Baptiste Perez, okay? Mr. Woodson?
Yes. I just have a comment. I'm just, I know a lot of information is being given out, but, like Mr. Enquo said, time is of the essence. We don't really have time to be trying to figure out how much this dollar and that dollar. Of course, this is very important, but you have people who are professionals doing these numbers, sitting down, and then hours and hours to make sure that these numbers are correct. So I just hope that the members of the board are, soaking up this information as much as they can, and hopefully we'll be able to make a decision. The sooner we make a decision, the less of an impact that it's going to have on our students, on our teachers, and then the rest of our staff. Thank you.
Ms. Baptiste Perez. Thank you, Mr. Woodson.
I had a follow-up question regarding the special education services. With regards to in this presentation, are we looking to bring students back?
I don't have that specific, target point in the district, but we're currently bringing students back as we speak. And so that's always a timing, because you have your PPT meetings that will dictate when and how these kids are coming back. Again, when I talk about contracts, that has a lot to do with it as well. When we start writing contract renewals, then we have an opportunity to kind of bring kids back if we have services in the district for them. That's the only real reason why we would even want them to come back, that we have the necessary programmatic things in the district that we could serve them instead of having them being served outside the district.
Yeah, that's my number one concern, is because we haven't been able to provide it. I know we're obligated, with FATE to provide a free and appropriate public education. And so if we don't have those resources, I don't see how we can actually bring the students back, or how cutting contracted special education services would actually help out. My next question is just more with regards to phase 3 with the academic vendors. I was just curious as to why we went forward with Ingenuity when there were free options like Apex available. And I know prior to having an academic officer, you were in charge of academics. Was that like a district plan, or I just want to understand, or is it back on, like, I guess, consideration?
Well, it's my understanding that the district has been using Ingenuity for years. And so I want to make sure that we just continue the utilization of that. I was just brought up to speed regarding a program that the state has, that the state offers, in order for us to kind of be able to consider looking at that program. But one of the tricky things you have to consider is, when you leave a program that you've been using for the district for years into a new one, it's a whole new training process. The district has to set up the technology to be able to work with that program. But there's a lot of different things there. But since it's a free program from the state, I think that's something that we need to consider looking at. And if our technology in the district and our technology department has the means of being able to monitor and manage that, again, so yes, I think it needs to be an option that the board needs to consider, and then we can make that recommendation. Hey, we have this program. It costs nothing. Ingenuity that we're currently using is, $100,000. Being able to kind of work from there. Yes.
Yeah, no, I was just asking because I know that there's other free programs like Apex that were not considered, and so that $100,000 for the last school year could have been part of the savings. I just want to follow up with regards to, you mentioned that you're meeting with other superintendents. Could you just share with us what districts who you are planning to meet with, who you've met with regards to the special education savings or advocacy?
Yeah. I just today I've had a conversation with a board member from Sheldon, and he was kind to giving me a little bit more information about it. So I gave him my contact information. So we're gonna hopefully in the next couple of weeks have a chance to go and visit. their new facility, and it's right next door here. So I think it's important for us to kind of tap in. Had several conversations with other superintendents. I was at a breakfast just the other day, talking to a couple of superintendents. I think it was, is it Weston? A couple of, I can't remember the exact superintendent district's name, whatever. But again, that's just opportunities as I start to talk with others. Again, I'll make sure that, the board is aware of some of the things and some of the opportunities that some of you guys may want to go with the team on some of those visits. So I'll definitely tap into you guys as well.
I guess my question is, how is that different from the proposal last school year with regards to a special education center? Because I believe yourself was included, but there was a trip to Springfield, Massachusetts to look at a suspension center, and there's been talks with other superintendents. So with regards to it, and yeah, Shelton's one. We were at the CADE conference. Stratford started their own. Enfield. There's been several districts since last year that got started, and so I know that was something that was already commenced now. So I just need some clarification as to what else you're looking for with regards to that, and then what are the resources we're having? Because again, if I go back to the chart, it just doesn't make sense to me if we're going to try and provide those services that one of the positions, any of the positions being cut is special education related.
Ms. Baptiste-Perez, I would love to get your recommendations. And so if there's other districts that you've already had the conversations with, feel free to share. I'll be glad.
You should have that. You were a deputy. And this is a plan that came out last year. So I just feel like this is being repetitive. Like there was already a plan. There was already conversations. You were there and in those conversations. So that should almost be fast track, not say we're going to start all over again and meet with other districts. But, this is just a presentation. There's some cuts that are just too critical at this stage, and that's all I'm going to say for now.
Thank you. Mr. Woodson, your hand is still up. I don't know if you have another question.
No, not at this time. Sorry about that.
Thank you. I would make a point. I think as a board, we put a halt to the bringing special ed back because we never actually followed through with a plan for the school closures. So I just want to make a point for that as well. So does anybody have any other questions? All right, so this was a presentation of the budget gap closure plan. There is going to be some action that needs to be taken, and we will have another meeting to take action. Mr. Traber, go ahead.
I have a point of personal interest, so when you're done wrapping this up, I wanted.
Okay, yeah. So we'll get an agenda together and a meeting time sooner than later. Make sure we take action on this. And there, you'll have board members. You can have time to really digest this information and hopefully work with Dr. Avery next week when we have the meeting where we can decide if certain things shouldn't get cut or to go through with the plan. So that is all I have. Mr. Traber, you have a point of personal privilege?
Yes, ma'am. I apologize. I meant to raise a couple of these items on Monday. We lost in Bridgeport on Monday, this past weekend, a former state rep, Jack Hennessy. And I just wanted to mention it at our meeting. This was a person who worked hard, represented the city of Bridgeport for 18 years, and was a veteran. and veteran politician who did a lot for our city. And I thought it was appropriate that we pay tribute to that and recognize his service. He died all too young. So I wanted to mention that and take a moment of silence for Jack. If we could just bow our heads for a moment. I'm not into using up a lot of time on that, but I want to just mention that he left us too early. Thank you. I also wanted to mention that at the same time, I didn't get a chance to get up there because of my schedule, but we also lost in the last few days a little, not quite as young, but still too young, a gentleman named Mark Waxenberg. And none of you will probably know who he is, but he was a giant in the education field in Connecticut, the former director of the CEA. And I will tell you that were it not for him, we would not have elected Board of Ed members in the city of Bridgeport. He was the director of the CEA who came forward and gave us the support we needed when Mayor Finch tried to take away our right to vote for the Board of Ed. He provided the resources along with the American Federation of Teachers to run a campaign against the charter change revision that would have allowed the mayor to appoint all 9 members of the Board of Ed. And he died too young this week. So you will not know who he was, but he passed away too in the last few days. And he was responsible for bringing me into a meeting in Hartford and saying, can you guys run a campaign down in Bridgeport to block this change and stop it from happening? And I said, yeah, I think we can do that. And we ended up making sure that we still retain the right to vote for the Board of Ed in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So I just wanted to raise that. And the last one, a real personal privilege. My daughter had a baby girl this afternoon.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great. If there's no other business at the moment, I can entertain a motion to
adjourn.
moved by Ms. Baptiste Perez.
Second.
Second.
In favor? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? All right, motion to adjourn. The time is 9:25. Have a great night.